Moon Girl is still magic. I've already made a first impressions video on it, and the most popular full-length video on my channel is 50% me praising it. I don't think I could be any clearer in telling people that they need to go watch it. And also, that season finale, wow. But this video isn't about those episodes. It's about a different contender for best episode of the first season. I mean, we get introduced to Lawrence Fishburne as an all-powerful singing deity. What's not to love? And it isn't just that, but the episode itself delivers a very well executed message about finding the value of others, and it does so through the most unlikely of sources. In The Beyonder, Lunella meets The Beyonder. Okay, I'll stop doing that. An omnipotent entity assigned to watch the earth and study humanity so he can decide whether or not to destroy it. Yeah, we're starting real low stakes in this, aren't we? And can we take a second to appreciate The Beyonder? His design is just so unique and amazingly suited for the art style while giving him an otherworldly feel that none of the other characters have. It's a great example of a character design that works really well in the medium, and it's a great argument as to why not every animated property should be made into a live action remake. Disney. Just why? Anyone who's watched this show will tell you that it's got a very unique look and feel to it, from the art style to the animation. Even the sound isn't like a lot of other shows coming out today. It has a very comic book-like style with characters feeling more drawn than most animated characters, to the point where you can actually see the scribble style shading in their hair. It makes use of comic panel style transitions and scene connections. The characters are often depicted as stationary even when they are moving, to the point where walk cycles are avoided, with everyone sliding in and out of view. But it isn't cheap looking, as it's clearly an artistic choice, because when it wants to, the show can and does have very fluid animation. It's an incredibly stylized show, and it creates a perfect effect when combined with the presence of the Beyonder, as it feels like he's deliberately making the universe do this stuff with his presence, especially considering he's the narrator. This combination of cinematography and art style with the Beyonder's lack of concern for the fourth wall reminds me of how manga can have interesting layouts and paneling when it makes use of the characters involved in the scene in a way that you wouldn't normally expect. And it translates really well to the more dynamic medium of animation because the character in question is supposed to be doing it on purpose. Also, having the narrator have been a character in the story is a really fun trope, and the introduction of the Beyonder was great. It really sells the idea that this guy is not just powerful but above the rules of the universe as we know it. Also, being voiced by the guy whose idea it was to adapt the comic into a TV show in the first place just adds extra points to that.
Selena Gomez, just follow me! Do whatever this magical creature says, Lunella!
Casey is still the best. I was right to choose this hill to die on. Anyway, I thought this episode was a masterful combination of all the aspects of this show, not just its artistic style. The message of the episode works really well with the concepts and characters involved, and I found it rather amusing that Moon Girl was used to do this. Fictional super geniuses all have this habit of being characterized as less than ideal at understanding others, and Lunella is no exception. Sure, she's more emotionally aware than, say, Jimmy Neutron, but her own feelings of intelligence and need to compete and win can often get in the way of that. If you've watched cartoons with genius characters before, you'd probably recognize the plot of this episode 3 minutes in. There's a science fair and Lunella's assigned partner isn't the smartest person around. She really wants to win, and so she tries to do the whole project on her own without listening to her partner's input. Classic stuff. And beyond just the idea of, say, wanting to keep a perfect grade, Lunella is giving extra motivation in wanting to win. A field trip to the Wakandan Outreach Center, the most technologically advanced building in New York. Okay, I know Wakanda is the most technologically advanced country in the Marvel universe, but I find it hard to believe that they would export enough technology to make their outreach center in New York the most technologically advanced building in the city where Tony Stark lives and the Baxter building is a thing. But you know what, that's not that important. Now normally this plot is actually pretty straightforward. Genius and not genius work together. Genius wants to win, does everything themselves and makes the not genius feel bad before learning their lesson. It's the inclusion of the Beyonder that really elevates an old but effective plot. Specifically, it elevates the conflict between Lunella and her partner, Eduardo, to the entire human race. Because you see, Lunella isn't just the smartest person in her school. She's currently the smartest human in the Marvel universe. This isn't just in the TV show, by the way, this is canon to the comics. And thus, the Beyonder, in his assignment to determine if humanity is worth not destroying, chooses her as his vehicle to receive insight on the planet. Lunella doesn't really take the Beyonder's presence seriously until she learns exactly why he's there. at which point he's already decided the whole humanity thing isn't really worth keeping around. Frankly, he'd probably find some people to agree with him too. Well, Lunella actually sort of convinced him that it wasn't worth keeping around because she was venting about being frustrated with Eduardo. When she tries to talk the Beyonder out of it, he tells her that the only way he'll be convinced humanity is worth saving is if Lunella wins the science fair with Eduardo, proving that even the supposed weakest link of the species has value. This improves the plotline thematically and narratively. Thematically, it raises the stakes of needing to prove Eduardo's value with a reflective look on humanity as a whole. This isn't just Lunella having to see the value in her partner, but also having to prove that value in conjunction to the value of all humans. She may be smarter than Eduardo, but she's also smarter than everyone else. Narratively, it actually gives more justification for Lunella's actions than simple arrogance. While it's perfectly believable she would try to shut out Eduardo in order to get to the Wakandan Outreach Center, she does try to include him in the project, albeit without really taking his ideas seriously. But when the fate of humanity rests on winning a science project, it suddenly becomes a lot more urgent, and that's when she shuts him out completely, failing to see the point of the challenge and thinking she could fool the Beyonder, who turned her solo project into pickles. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen. But being so important to this video, let's actually look at Eduardo. He's not just one of the most entertaining minor characters in the show relative to the amount of screen time he gets, but he's surprisingly complex. Upbeat, fun, overeager, not very good at reading the room, and kind of insecure. It's pretty clear he was excited to work with Lunella because he respects her intelligence. You can even tell this in the first episode of the show when he challenges her to solve a Rubik's Cube, and even though he calls her a nerd when she gets too into explaining the power generator she was working on, he's still impressed when she finishes the cube literally behind her back. Anything else? Oh yeah, the time skipping episode shows he's gonna be her prom date. That's a plot point. Part of his excitement in this episode is because of the idea of working with Lunella and his desire to prove that he's smart to people who underestimate him because of how he presents himself. And he figured that Lunella would be someone who could appreciate the ideas he had. But she didn't, and that was clearly crushing for him. So he decides to try and do the project on his own, because proving himself was more important than the easy win following Lunella's instructions would provide. Also, I'd like to take a moment to say that I came up with a similar idea to Lunella's when I was like 10. I hadn't the faintest idea how to actually implement it, but I was convinced I could fix the ozone layer by creating new ozone from oxygen with a machine while converting the leftovers into carbon. Except, you know, as diamonds. I totally had a I'm a genius inventor phase as a child.
Oh, my precious. Whoa, is that hair?
And the thing is, when Lunella does take the time to actually listen to Eduardo's idea, it isn't actually that bad. Sure, he wasn't articulate in describing it, but his observation did hold some scientific merit. And so, when she does work with him, they manage to throw together a last-minute attempt to win the science fair. But then it falls apart, and they don't win. Which I think might actually be the best twist of the episode. Now, obviously, the flaw of such high stakes as this episode is that the protagonist can't lose. The higher the stakes, the harder it is to believe the characters could fail, and all of humanity is a bit on the far end. The Beyonder, being a bit of a troll, does fake that he's going to go through on the destruction of humanity to give us the episode's mandatory, uniquely animated musical climax. But after giving Lunella a heart attack, he reveals that he was faking it. As it turns out, he was willing to spare humanity simply off watching Lunella and Eduardo work together on their project, even if they didn't win, which really brings the lesson home. It wasn't really about winning, it was about recognizing the potential within others instead of shutting them out because you think you know better. And as the Beyonder says, humans are complicated. Moon Girl is a really good show. Of course, its animation is getting the attention it deserves, but I don't think we should overlook the writing that goes into it. And I believe The Beyonder shows how well the writing can make use of its characters to elevate the story it tells. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Tell me your thoughts on the show in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content. Thank you and good day.